Hello, my name is Charles Bedord. Ever wonder what it's like to run a small business in Silicon Valley? Well, stay tuned and find out some of the challenges faced by small business owners and their employees. Small business owners and their employees must overcome several distinct challenges to be successful in Silicon Valley. To talk about these issues, our guest today is Mr. Kirk Barton, the founder and general manager of A Slice of New York, a pizza business with stores located in Santa Clara and Sunnyvale. Kirk, welcome to The Better Part.
Thanks, Chuck.
Tell us a little bit about your background and how you entered the pizza business.
So I have a tech career that I started in Manhattan, where I grew up. When I came out to Cisco in San Jose back in the late 90s, one of the things that I always do whenever I travel, look for your pizza shop, Chinese place, sandwich shop. And in New York, pizza was one of those things that it's kind of like my comfort food. I never found something that I really, truly bonded with. So it's always been on my mind since I moved out to California.
So that was your passion.
That was my passion. Still always my passion. Always a consumer. Always a consumer.
So as a restaurant founder, how do you go about making a good dining or entertainment experience available to people in this area? People especially who don't have high-paying tech jobs.
To me, it's one of the corporate things that I really took to heart is it's all about people. So when I was at NBC, GE, Jack Welch always talked about it's all about the people and the culture. Cisco, same way. John Chambers, same thing. All about the people. And so we kind of brought that to the retail business. I've never worked in retail before. I've never worked in a restaurant before. So when I told my mom,
really, you'd never worked in a restaurant?
Never worked in a restaurant. So when I told my mom that I was thinking about a pizza shop, she said, "Are you crazy? What are you doing? You don't know anything about that industry. You know how many times they fail. In New York, they close all the time."
Yes.
But that's something that was a passion of mine because I didn't find that here. There's a lot of displaced New Yorkers, a lot of transplants out here, a lot of East Coasters out here. And I saw it as something that is needed in this area.
So what advice would you give to anyone thinking about opening a small business?
Be very clear on what you're trying to accomplish and focus on that. And no matter how many times you try and communicate that to someone else, they're never really going to understand what drives you and what your passion is, whether it's your spouse, your friends, or whatever. Make sure you're well funded. Make sure there's plenty of money to do that. And then when you start, keep your foot on the gas and keep going. Don't stop, and believe in yourself and what you have in your mind.
And pizza was your passion growing up?
Always. It's just what I do.
Okay. Do you ever nuke leftover pizza for yourself?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Cardinal rule here: do not do that. We actually have on our FAQ page on our website: do not microwave our product. Period.
Okay. It loses its taste, I think.
It destroys it.
So what are the biggest challenges to overcome if you want your small business to be successful in this kind of environment?
So they always talk about location. I don't actually buy into that.
Really?
It's more about the people and gathering the right team and assembling that. That to me is the most important thing, is to get the right people on board. You have to have people that are going to be part of your organization, that believe in what you're doing, that are on board with what your goals are.
That's interesting. Do you think that you can train people to be part of the organization and become part of what's ongoing, or do you think they just have that when they walk in the door?
Well, there are certain things. So we don't expect any experience. We train. We're happy to train anybody for anything. What we need is good attitude. You have to have a willingness to learn, willingness to participate, and have just a passion for being and taking care of people. We're a service industry. We take care of people. We create fun. And that's really, being willing to do that every day is something that not everybody can do. And we hold the bar kind of high at our place.
Now, one of the things we hear a lot about these days, especially in restaurants, is the effect of minimum wage. We've been hearing how minimum wages have been increased in the Bay Area and other cities around the country. As a small business founder, what do you think about these minimum wage increases? Can most businesses afford to pay them?
So I think that's going to be a challenge for most businesses, especially in the fast food. We don't consider ourselves fast food. We're a quick serve because
Right.
nothing we do is fast. It just happens to be quick. Everything we do is made by hand. So we're a heavy labor-oriented product. Our business is we have a lot of labor. We're at almost 45% of our actual expense is just people, just labor.
I see.
So when we talk about, I don't like government messing in the way I run my business.
Right.
It takes away my tools. My tools are be able to bonus people, be able to take care of people. And when I have mandates that say I need to start somebody off who's 17 years old, never had a job before, and have them have the same pay structure that's similar to somebody that's been there maybe 3 years or 4
Right.
years, that's a challenge for me, and
Okay.
I just don't like that kind of control. But I'm full supporter of minimum wage. I was supporter
Right.
of the 15,
Right.
18 to 15, all that, and I, we should talk about living wage, not minimum wage.
Right,
Minimum wage
but
is a fallacy.
But as you used another interesting term there, bonuses. Do you believe in the bonus concept?
Yeah, so
Yes.
absolutely. We actually, that's some of the corporate stuff that we like. So with bonuses, we do annual bonuses. We've been proud to do annual bonuses every year. Some people have never even heard of a bonus, never had a bonus before until we actually did that. We do annual performance reviews based on personal performance and business performance.
that's great.
And we take that, so we people need to understand where the business is and where it's coming from. There's no magic here. It's finances. Business is business, where you're doing pizza, computers, phones. It's all fundamentally the same function as a business. It's how you make that business operate on a day-to-day basis.
Now, the other half that you hear about, besides minimum wage, is rising rents. And how do you adjust for rent increases? We hear a lot about businesses going out of business because the property owners have increased the rents. How do you adjust for that? And how do you deal with that?
So, in general, rents go up every year. We have fixed rate increases in our rents. All utilities go up. There's only a couple of knobs you can turn to increase revenue in a business. You can increase volume as long as you're profitable. You can lower expenses, which is either cutting food quality, which
Right.
we would never do, or you cut your labor, or somehow affect your labor costs, which are a large portion, or you raise your prices. Those are the only three real knobs that you can turn. Two of them are for what I can see, broken. We would never touch them, quality and people, which leaves price increase. The only way to handle that is through the menu, so that it feeds from the customers into our process, so we can raise wages so people can afford to live here and we can afford to pay our bills.
Now, with the increases, let's say, in minimum wage and you've already addressed rents now, do you ever see a time in the future where perhaps small businesses just can't function in this environment and you'll wind up with only large corporate businesses rather than private businesses? For instance, I know there are restaurants who have complained that large companies are opening their own cafeterias and their own eating facilities and drawing away
Nice
business
ones
from
too,
them.
and they subsidize it.
Is this a real threat to small businesses? Do you see
So,
that?
yeah, so I don't think that's the threat necessarily, the campus products. It's just the cost of living for people and being able for people to survive here. That's really at risk. When you look at corporate companies like Pyology, that's a corporate chain out of business in the Bay Area. They closed all their shops. Or you look at corporations like Starbucks or Applebee's or any of these other ones. When those become the norm and the small ones are going out of business because they're the only ones that can survive, I said that's going to be a real problem for me from a quality of life perspective, because people like the mom and pop shops are what create that real cultural bond. They're the ones that really, they're not the only ones, but they're the ones that typically are the fabric of the foundation of the community that's there. They're rooted in the community, they live in the community, and they support the community there. So it would be a real shame, and you're starting to see that, unfortunately. Togo's in our shopping center closed already. By the Bucket down on Stevens Creek closed. You're going to see more and more, and it's slowly eroding that quality that exists here in the Bay Area.
Do you find it difficult to hire workers in small businesses in Silicon Valley? For instance, in your own pizza business, is it difficult to hire people? And if so, why is that?
It's very challenging because the people that we tend to hire don't live here. And they can't live here. They can't afford to live here when rents are $2,400 a month for
Right.
one bedroom. we don't pay minimum, but it's nothing near the six-figure salaries that tech. So we're continually competing with just that as a general way of life around here.
Now, when you say don't live here, you mean where is here? For instance, they don't live in the Santa Clara Valley, or they don't live in the Sunnyvale particular or Santa Clara particular?
So you can live in the valley and still not be able to get to work. Like I have a number of folks that live in South San Jose that cannot take public transit after a certain hour because the buses don't run, or the buses run so infrequently. Yeah, I mean, people live. You don't have to live in. I have people that live in Modesto, Gilroy, Morgan Hill, Oakland that come in here, and it hurts me to support that type of commute for our business because I don't think that's scalable. But this is the life we live right now. People cannot afford to live in a local commutable area. They can't bike, they can't walk because there's no place around here that's affordable for them.
Who are the typical applicants for jobs at small businesses? Not speak in your own pizza business, but also if you have a broader perspective too, please, I'd like to hear about that.
Sure. So in our business, we have anything from, we start off, we don't like to go below 17 because we have some heavy equipment in there. But at 17, we have people that go up into, well, I'm 50, so so they go up to there, and they're everything in between. And we have everything from first-time entries into the workforce to seasoned professionals working kitchen, people that have culinary experience or want to get into culinary experience, or people that just want a change of pace. We have a couple of high-tech folks that are no longer in high-tech, similar to me, that are now in our organization. We have a different model, which I don't know if we'll get into, but we're the first worker cooperative here in the South Bay. So we actually have an employee-owned structure, legal structure that we've created to help support and create really a career here rather than just a landing point to jump off to some other job.
So when you're reviewing CVs or resumes, looking to hire someone, what jumps out that makes an applicant, say, very desirable or undesirable to work at a small business?
So you're always the classic, if you bounce around, you see like 6 things in less than a year. You got to ask, why is that?
Okay.
So, that's
frequent job change.
Frequent job change. And I'm less concerned about past experience and what people have done in the past. I want a good attitude. My priority in hiring is culture. Because if you can't teach culture, you can't teach work ethic. That's inherent, and if those things aren't fundamentally there, that's not going to work out for us. We hold our guys to a pretty high standard, high level of excellence. We don't expect perfection. We don't want perfection. We just want a good attitude that tries hard, learns, and continues to excel.
So attitude, rules, and willingness to learn.
Those are our priorities. The rest of the stuff you'll learn. But if you don't have a good attitude, or I would rather have someone with a great attitude with no experience than someone like a pro that has a lousy attitude and bring the rest of the crew down. Yeah.
Can you tell me about what percentage of job applicants that you get live in the Santa Clara Valley?
So we have a fair amount that live actually in the valley, but just about everybody drives.
Really?
We have, I think, 4 people that use public transit out of about 35.
Really? Okay.
But that puts a lot of cars on the road right now, and it's not a scalable solution right now. But they cannot afford. First of all, if there is something available, which there is very little available, it's so out. All of their take-home pay would go just to pay rent. That's not scalable. Right. I mean, we pay pretty good. If you work full-time with us, you can make 50, 60 grand. I mean, that's a reasonable expectation if you work full-time with us. That can't even get you a starter rental place in a 2-bedroom. It's a non-starter here, and it's a real problem.
So essentially, they live far enough away so the buses and trains don't go there.
Or they go there so infrequently, or with the reconfiguration that VTA is doing, they're going to go there less, or they'll eliminate routes altogether because they're not used that often.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us, right now, for instance, we have a lot of conversation going on in the area about growth and no growth and so on. From a perspective of a small business founder and general manager, are there some attitudes or actions that you see that are really detrimental to small business growth and development?
I think part of it is just the general attitude that people have been here for a while, homeowners that have been here for a while, they don't want to see change to what they bought into a long time ago. And I think that's really hard because in order to embrace the people that are here today, there needs to be change. And I would be more scared to not see change than to see the change, because right now, what we have now in our communities right now is not functioning well. Heavy congestion, inability to get to work on time, or just not being willing to even make that commute. Like, we'll have people that just will not, it just won't work out for them because their commute's too long and they can't afford to live in the area. So I think that's a real problem for me as a small business owner. When people ask, customers love us, they say, so when are you going to open up here, or in San Francisco, or in Fremont, or in South San Jose? I'm like, I want to maintain and make our current shops excellent and keep them excellent. I don't want to try and spread ourselves thin. I'm struggling staffing current levels right now.
Do you think that, let's say, additional high-density housing, things like this, would help?
I think it'll definitely help. I think it'll definitely help, as long as that high-density housing also has considerations for everybody, not just the wealthy, not just a certain demographic. But without more capacity and more stock and more stuff for people to live in, this isn't going to change, and it's going to get worse.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about, let's say, have you had some firsthand experience with people that have worked for you, perhaps presently or past, and with poor living conditions or living problems?
So I'll use one example. We had a couple. Our guys are friends in and out of work. We have a very familial environment. We call it chosen family. We're a chosen family here because we do really. The culture really bonds us together. And we had one guy that actually moved back to Minnesota because his roommate, who also works here, he found another place out. He moved back home out in Tracy. He went home to Minnesota because he couldn't find a place to live that was affordable. He actually left the state. Mm-hmm. That's just one example. Another one down in Gilroy, again, another one in Morgan Hill. Oakland, moved back in with their parents up in Oakland because he couldn't find local work down here or a local place to live down here. And for a while, he's commuting to us, which is, again, I love the guy, and it hurts me to see him put himself through that kind of condition to get to work.
So transportation, you see, is a real problem too. Getting people for hiring people. Do you have any suggestions on could you talk a little bit about the transportation problem as far as driving versus public transit, and a little bit about, let's say, how this affects hiring people?
Well, one example I'll say, like, we're open till midnight. We're open till midnight in our San Jose, Santa Clara location on Stevens Creek. There are people that cannot get home because they don't have a car and they have to Uber or Lyft.
Oh, really? So that
costs upwards of
expensive.
$15 to $20 just to get home. Right, that's an hour's worth of labor right there, just to get from work to home. That's a real problem. If we don't collectively, as a community, it's not just the developers, it's not just city leaders, it's not just the community. If we all don't see this as a crisis, not something we need to fix in 5 years, but something that we had to take immediate action on, we're going to lose our businesses.
But on the other hand, it takes a long time to build infrastructure, doesn't it?
For government, it does.
Yes.
Not for the private sector, right? You got Apple, Google, all these people. We have all this technology being developed all over the place, and it's not being deployed here in our communities right now. I don't know why. I don't know why the first autonomous taxi was in Pennsylvania and not in San Jose or not in Silicon Valley somewhere. Commercially deployed. It makes me crazy to see all this technology around us, because I think technology is how we will get out of this problem, using that kind of leverage that technology gives us. But we need to embrace that and not be scared about that, and be willing to take risk, or we will just be not doing something is still doing something. It's a decision.
Are you optimistic or somewhat pessimistic about solving transportation problems over the short and long term?
I'm very optimistic, actually, because I think we have about 12 months to figure it out, or we're going to hit a cliff.
12 months isn't very long.
No, it's not. But you know what? Companies come and go in those same timelines. They've been established, and the reason I say that as kind of like a short fuse is because if we don't figure it out in that timeline, we will not have people that can support the small businesses that make our communities wonderful. And they will slowly disintegrate. They will slowly disappear. They'll just close their doors. They'll shutter them just because they can't afford to staff. It's just not worth it anymore.
Do you think that the challenges faced by your business is very similar or somewhat different from challenges faced by other small businesses, such as, let's say, fabric stores or hobby shops or barber shops, et cetera?
So I don't know about. I'm just going to stick to the food industry a little bit
Right.
because that's where I'm more familiar
Right.
with lately. I think it affects everybody, but specifically in the food industry, we're not trying to create robots to do jobs. Like when we integrate somebody into our environment, they become an integral part of our team, and we want them to be that way. So if they leave us, we feel it, and it hurts us, because we believe that's how we can scale our business and have a real meaningful business that people that people respect and people want to be a part of. But the labor issues and the kind of the ones where you're just doing the job, I'm just working my 6-7 hours, I'm punching in, punching out, I'm just doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
That I think is going to be a real struggle because there's no passion necessarily in that work. It's just a paycheck, and that paycheck isn't enough to cover what's going on. I think it's going to continue to be a real problem.
How do the cities of Santa Clara and Sunnyvale support small businesses? You hear a lot, for instance, on the news, once in a while there's a small business appreciation day, et cetera. Is there something that the cities around here do well to support small businesses?
I don't see it very much, honestly. I mean, I have nothing against them. They're not hurting us, I don't think, but they're not doing anything to really support us. I mean, everybody likes to talk about they support small business, but I don't know what that translates to.
Any special? I don't know. I'm not an expert on tax structures or rent or anything like this. But do they have any programs aimed at money issues such as tax or rents or anything?
Not that I know. Not that I know.
Help support small businesses.
Not that I know. All the big. We're here for small business. We want to support you. I've never seen any of that. I've been in business almost 12 years right now, two locations. And doing business with the cities in Santa Clara and Sunnyvale are wonderful. They're easy to get permits. It's very straightforward. That's fine. So from that perspective,
okay, so from the permit,
from a getting open is great. Once you're open, though, I don't think there's any inherent, here's a big pot of money you can go after. Now, one of the things in Santa Clara, we're headquartered in Santa Clara, and like I said, we're a worker cooperative now, and I think they like that idea. No one really knows what that means down here, and we're trying to evangelize that a little bit more and advocate for that, and they're supportive of that.
Well, could you tell us, please, a little bit what does a cooperative? I mean, what is a cooperative?
So
in layman's terms.
In layman's terms, a cooperative. We're a worker-owned cooperative, meaning the employees own the business. My wife and I, we sold a transaction, sold the business to this cooperative group, and we're using the profits of the business to pay for that transaction, so the employees themselves do not actually have to cut a check.
So you say you sold the business to a cooperative group.
That's means our business.
Okay.
So we created
So people had to buy into the business.
They become members.
Okay.
For a modest membership fee, they become members. They can get that membership back. But in general, just at a high level, the employees now participate in the governance, the running of the business. They vote. We have a board that is elected by the members and represents the members, and they determine the future and strategy of the business, and they share in the profits and losses of the business. They don't have personal losses, but they can have personal gains based on business success. So basically, the work that they put in is directly reflected in profits that they can now take advantage of.
Okay, so the work they put in, the attitudes they have, the way they greet the public, and wanting to make the public come back and visit again.
Yep, our goal is to make people. We create happiness. That's all we do. We're completely discrisctionary. No one has to come in and buy a slice.
That's
right?
That's very true. That's a good point.
And so everything we do is to make we want you to have an exceptional experience when you come in. Food, service, the whole thing, visuals,
and
everything.
A good attitude.
Good attitude, absolutely, absolutely.
So, if you had one request of a Silicon Valley government to improve the environment for small business development and success, what would that be?
My biggest message would be education, informing in two ways. First is through the public. communicating cost of living issues, wage issues, and how that could translate to business price structure changes. And then the second would be around business, educating on what other forms of employee ownership exist to give them, to give businesses an understanding and to make them aware that, for example, work cooperatives is an example of a legitimate, structured business that is functional. It's a legal entity. We work in the LLC realm of the law, and it's a viable way to be an exit strategy for people that want to get out of the business, or just reward employees that want to be part of the business.
So how would they go about educating?
Through seminars in city council, and the first part is educate the government. Government needs to be educated so they can evangelize to the local community when they get stopped at the supermarket, at the gas station, or things like that.
So maybe it's an issue too of the city governments learning what the small businesses need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay.
And
then educating perhaps what, seminars or forums or?
Making seminars available online, like YouTubes and videos. We're a technology area. We should be using technology to the best of our abilities.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. You're an old tech guy.
I'm an old tech guy. I always want to see how technology. I got into the pizza business saying I'm going to bring technology to an industry that is technology deprived.
Right.
And we've actually developed some software internally that make our business more effective, which I can't talk about.
Well, is there a closing statement or anything you'd like to say in final to end our show? We're about out of time here.
Well, the biggest thing is for local government or the community in general, that anybody that's hearing this would be to, whatever changes we see, is to focus on the people. Make sure it's an inclusive vision that handles not just the corporations and the high-tech people, but also handles the service industry, teachers, and everybody in between, so you have the entire spectrum that are represented. Right now, there are two people that typically are represented in the community: tech workers and homeowners, privileged. And those are the only two voices, and those are not the only two demographics that live here. And we need to have an inclusive vision for how all of those people that, beyond those people that have either been here or coming here that make a very high salary, how they can survive in Silicon Valley.
Well, thank you for a very interesting discussion. I enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Kirk, thanks for joining us today on The Better Part. Also, I would like to invite our TV viewers to join us and become members of The Better Part. Visitors are always welcome to attend our meetings held at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays at the Cupertino Senior Center. If you are interested in becoming a Better Part member, please contact the Senior Center for more information, or simply attend one of our meetings. Remember, too, that our shows are also available for viewing on Roku and YouTube. Thanks for watching.